Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Power Man podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. I know you know that, but I just like to remind myself how grateful I am to be sitting here in this chair, speaking to you, speaking to these amazing guests, and being able to do this for a living, folks. It's absolutely phenomenal, and I would not be able to do any of it, not 1 ounce of it, if it wasn't for you. So thank you so much for your listens, your shares, your likes, the DMs, which are just blowing up every single day. And I promise I'm getting back to all of you. I do them personally. I have no assistant. I do all my own DMs. So that's why it takes me a little while because I'm kind of slow. I'm old. You got to deal with it. All right. That's how it goes, guys. You've been with me for a lot of years, so you understand. Folks, thank you for being here. Now, if you are a friend of the program, and I'm sure you are, then you know what time it is. We got to go ahead and take a sip of our preferred beverage. Man, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. That's right. You know what we're drinking. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up and check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. Yeah, that's right. That's just like my wife. Folks, they do all the right things for all the right reasons. They brew a mean cup of Joe and they support veterans, which is one of the biggest reasons why we here at the Power Man support them. If you're a veteran out there, I want to thank you and your family for everything you've done. If you hadn't gone and done what you did as a veteran, I wouldn't even be able to say a word here on this show. And you know how I know that? Because they've tried to stop me. And because of people like you, they can't. Folks, thank you so much. And Freedom Hill Coffee feels the same way about you. We love you. Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up and check them out. And tell them Power of Man sent you. Let me get one more sip of this so I can keep up with this young buck on the other side of the table from me. Oh, we're going to be killing that through the whole thing. I need that this morning. Stayed up way too late. All right, folks, we have a magnificent guest with us today. He's got a fabulous story, and I cannot wait to bring it to you. Please welcome to our show. He's a motivational speaker, and he's an author of The Disease of Me: How Losing My Professional Baseball Career, Drug Addiction, and Brain Cancer Saved My Life. Please welcome Michael Bugary. Michael, how you doing, brother?
Hey, Brian, good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, not at all, man. I appreciate you being here. You have, brother. I think I wasted way too much time on the intro because you have one heck of a story, and I just kind of want to get out of the way and let you tell it right now, brother.
Yeah,
So, tell everybody who is Michael Bulgari and what exactly brings you here today, man.
yeah. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, I was a former baseball player. Baseball was my identity growing up. At an early age, I was told I was by all these different people that I was going to be this baseball star, and I made it that who I was. And after I played baseball at the University of California, Berkeley, and then I got drafted to play for the Boston Red Sox organization. And after my second year, I suffered a career-ending arm injury that I felt like I lost, everything that I was, and I felt like I lost my self-worth and my whole being, and I didn't know how to cope with it, and I turned to drugs and alcohol as a solution to numb my feelings, and as my addiction progressed, eventually to heroin, I was diagnosed with a medulloblastoma brain tumor slightly smaller than a tennis ball, and having to go through all that, I became physically, mentally, and spiritually broken, and I once again, hiding from a world that I felt abandoned me, and I turned to drugs and alcohol again as a solution, and that's just the synopsis of it. But there's a lot of things in between there. But what I've come to learn in my recovery of getting through that stuff is that I suffer from something that's far worse than all of those things that I went through. It's the disease of me. It's the way that I think. I have just a selfish a selfish way of thought, and I don't just hurt myself, I hurt everybody around me. So I've had to really learn how to take personal responsibility. I've learned how to manage my pain physically and mentally, and to work on my relationship with God and with other people in order for me to live in the solution, because I ultimately will always am and will always be my biggest problem.
Wow, that's a huge. You unpacked a ton, brother, and that's a huge revelation to come to. Um, Not to ask too vague a question, but
Yeah.
how did you how'd you arrive at that?
Pain and suffering. That's how I wrote, immense. And I think there's not just one event. There's multiple things, and I call them spiritual experiences, because it's God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I had to first really, I knew I had a problem. I knew that normal people don't go to rehab, or normal people don't use heroin or these other things. I knew I had problems. I knew I went through those issues, but I didn't feel it. And I didn't feel it. And when you feel something, you're willing to change. That's the only time you can. And the moment that I first saw my actions and my selfish behavior through the light of others was when I really started to feel it. And then I have an awesome therapy dog who helped me get through things. He came into my life at the right time, and he was the first good thing to happen to me in a long time. He helps me. He helped me change in a lot of ways, and then I continue with his work and helping other people. When I help other people and I get outside of myself, that really helps me the most. And that's how I've learned to to realize, hey, my problems aren't as bad as I make them seem, and that ultimately my connection to my higher power too as well. So there's a lot of different reasons that I came to it, but mostly a lot of pain and suffering.
Gotcha. No, I understand. I talked to a lot of guys on the show, and also in our group, who have similar issues, not quite to the extent, that you've had to overcome, especially, but the when you're going through it, from what I understand, you understand you're going through it, but you are still sort of choosing to keep going through it because
Yeah.
feeling it is worse than knowing it. Am I kind of close on that?
Yeah, yeah. What I think it comes down to, yes, it's that internal battle, right? And I think we all face them in some different ways. I think it's the internal battle of me not wanting to accept something, but then realizing that it is true, and the anger and blame, right? I wanted to blame everybody else. I wanted to because that the truth was that the bad things that happened to me were my fault, right? But that truth is buried so deep under layers of denial because blame and anger are so much easier than taking responsibility. And I just wanted to numb that inner voice, right? That's what it was. I just didn't want to think about it. Big thing about me, and I have to accept me as me, and I will always rather get high and avoid my problems. That's just who I am. I would rather do that. And so even today, I have to work hard on a daily basis to not live that way. But yeah, yes, in a sense, it gets to a point where you become accustomed to that lifestyle, and it's just too painful to think about it. You're right in a way. I think what it comes down to is just skirting the blame.
Hmm.
It's that's I don't want to take responsibility for myself and for my past.
Right. And I hear where you are now, which is awesome. I mean, congratulations on everything you've gone through and everything you've achieved coming back from that. Because, it cannot, anybody who thinks it's easy isn't paying attention, So, I mean, I totally get that.
Thank you.
But I'm curious because, when the plane's going down, right, at some point
Yeah,
somebody has to grab the controls and at least start the ascent.
yeah,
And so there's a lot that goes into it between,
sure.
faith and therapy and things like this. But was I guess what happened first? For a lot of guys, it's like, what's gonna begin my pull out of this, dive,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, surrender, right? That's what it was. And
Hmm.
I got to a point, after I had such terrible side effects to my cancer treatment because my tumor was so rare, and the side effects of the chemotherapy and the radiation for years, I just struggled and back with addiction, and then I got put on I had I knew I needed to get off of it, and so I got put on all these different medications that essentially did the same thing, right? They just traded my drug dealers for doctors. And so I was on, and then
Yeah.
then after a couple of years of it, it got to a point where just the medication stopped working, and I found myself in what I call the limbo of agony, where I had to either roll over and die, or I had to do something different. Or that was the breaking point. And for me, I guess given my I attribute baseball to this, my determinants and self-preservation, and wanting to not give up, and wanting to push through it. And that's at that point there, I had to make a change, to take some suggestions. And that's when I started to do things differently. And I started to, hey, maybe I should learn to meditate. Maybe I just try new things. It was that breaking point of I had a divine ultimatum, you would say. And that's when my eyes started to open. Then I started to see that, God didn't abandon me. It's always been working in my life. I just never chose to see it. And then when I started to change that perspective, slowly things started to change. And it's a slow, grueling process where, yes, there's that one moment, but then just every time I show up, and I'm present and I just try my best, more and more good things happen. So that's how it kind of accumulated. And then I learned to, what the things that I started to get honest with myself. And like I said earlier, a big point in that time was when my therapy dog Lingo, who's in the army, I got him at a point where there's so many bad things happen to me in a row. And he was like the first good thing to happen to me and be in my life. And he didn't care about all the other stuff. This is just a creature that wanted to be with me. And he really inspired me to change, because I knew that if I wanted to keep him coming over, and I had to get better.
Wow, 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 wow. The okay, again, that's a ton, man. I love how open you're being, and I'm sure a lot of people right now are listening, to this intently, dealing with their issues. Did you have family or anything that were there to help you out, or were you doing this all on your
Yes.
own?
Yes, my family, I wouldn't be here without them. I have, great parents, military family. My parents are awesome and brothers and sisters. They're all supportive with me. But at the same time is right, I didn't allow them to be too. I mean, they helped me financially and they make sure that I didn't end up in a ditch somewhere, which I owe them everything for. But I didn't allow them inside because I just kept everybody at arm's distance, right? It's that isolation, or even it's a state of mind, right? Even when you're surrounded by a bunch of people, you can be isolated, and that's what I did, and that's why pain and suffering are different for me. I suffer when I'm alone on the inside, and I chose to suffer for a long time.
Wow, brother. You've mentioned faith, and God several times since we started talking here today. That clearly is a big part of,
Yeah.
how you were able to pull out of this, and make these changes in your life. Were you strong in your faith before all of this happened, or did you find that going through this pain and suffering?
I found that I was more of an agnostic. I was indifferent. I grew up going to church, hey, I think I'm a realist. There's just so much going on in this world. I think there has to be something bigger. But I didn't. I was mad at God, really. I was mad, and I was mad that he took baseball from me. I was mad that he took cancer from me, gave me brain cancer. And when I was diagnosed with brain cancer, I wasn't praying to God. I was indifferent. I didn't care if I lived or died. I didn't want to do it myself, but I didn't care. And I was just like, give me a stick to bite on, and let's get through the brain surgeries and the chemo and the radiation. But no, I didn't. And I think too, I think I'm too smart for my own good, right? So I think I was kind of adverse to other people's interpretations of God. So whenever like I heard it, I would project what you believed and not versus what I believed. I had to do a lot of like reading and different, just different points of view to understand my perspective of God in a way that I can understand. Ironically, that I don't understand, which works for me. So
Wow. Okay. I don't have experience, obviously, with like you do with this particular situation and affliction. So I only know it third hand from people like you who are willing to
yeah,
share their stories. With cancer and stuff, I have a lot of knowledge on that with my own family and things of that nature. And one thing I know about battling cancer is you really have to kind of know why. If you're in a situation where you're so beat down and you're just wanting to not feel, how do you gather yourself up for a fight against cancer if, like you just said, you really and truly don't care if you live or die?
I didn't, that at first, and that's hard to say. I didn't. I'll explain it this way. There's a vivid image that I share a lot when I speak, and it's a moment when I was first diagnosed, and I was in Arizona, and my mom had flown in from California, and she's sitting in the hospital bed with me, and the doctor, and I'm sitting on the bed, she's in the chair next to me, and the doctor is writing down all my percentages of my chances to live, and this procedure and that procedure and what and the percentages are not very good. And he's just talking all this talk. And you can tell he's delivered bad news a bunch of times, in his monotone tone. And he's talking this doctor talk that I don't quite understand. And not once did I turn to my mom and wonder what she must be going through. This was right after she had put me into rehab after all that. And then now I got brain cancer. And then, so not once did I think about her. And not once did I really pay attention to what the doctor was saying. I was just thinking in my mind, I'm going to get some really good drugs now, and I don't have to work hard for them. Just like, like I said, give me a stick to bite down on, and let's get through it. So I didn't. I chose again to numb my feelings and to numb it with substances, and that's a pattern that I created in my life, throughout with baseball, with alcohol, with all these other things of needing something for something, right? I need something to get through a certain situation because it's never okay just to be me. I'm just not good enough in a sense. So that was my solution was to turn to those substances that just took away those debates and those thoughts of this and that. So that's how I handled it.
My goodness. The therapy dog. Every time
Yeah.
you talk about therapy dog, I mean, I can literally see your face light up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there you go again. So
Yeah.
honestly, that's a really important part of this journey too.
Yeah.
We may pop in and out of some of these questions, but I wanted to make sure
Sure.
I touched on that pretty quick and gave it some priority. How did the therapy dog come into your life? What does the therapy dog do for you also?
Yeah. So I had just, like I said, I was in Arizona. I'm from California, and so I just moved back in with my parents after about a year or so after my cancer treatment when I was unable to take care of myself, and I moved back in with them, but I was still really struggling. I was still depressed, and I was still living the way that I was, and my mom worked at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. It's an army base where the soldiers learn foreign languages, and she was a big wig there at the time, and they had just adopted a dog to be a therapy dog for the soldiers. But typically, when a base or a facility or whatever, maybe when they adopt a dog, they assign them a handler, and Lingo didn't have the handler. He just lived on the base, and sometimes he would go home on the weekends with some of the civilians that worked there. Sometimes the soldiers would have to look at him, but I think that lack of consistency was taking its toll on him. And my mom, she saw this and thought, hey, she had a son at home that's hurting too. Maybe Lingo and I could help. His name is Lingo after language. Maybe Lingo and I could help each other. And so she brought him home one weekend, and so I remember that first. What he did for me was this: is that first time I took him out to the park. I wasn't caught up in the past or worried about the future. I was present. For the first time, and I don't know how long, just in the moment, watching this dog run around the park, having the time of his life, and I felt better when I got some fresh air and some exercise. It was just the first time where I just like got out of myself. And so long, I just been caught up in the prison of my own mind. And so he inspired me to change because I knew if I wanted to eventually become his handler, that I had to get better. And so that's when I started to work on myself, and I started to, get out back into the world, and start to take personal responsibility, and started to make some changes. And then when he was ready to retire from the army, I was able to adopt him with the promise that I would continue his work as a therapy dog to help other people in the way that he helped me. And so how he continues to help me now is we're going on to our fourth year at Pet Pal's organization at University Hospitals in Cleveland. So we go visit the patients all the time, And so one thing about my brain cancer diagnosis that always stuck with me was that it's very rare in adults, but it's very common in children, the type of tumor that I had. So I knew all the pain that I went through, but just thinking about an innocent kid, going through that really stuck with me. So I thought, hey, what better way than I could bring Lingo to the hospital and visit some of these kids at Rainbow Babies Children's Hospital. And that's how we started. But the important thing about what it does is it taught me the power of helping people and compassion, because when I go in to visit, the kids are not talking about, we're not having conversations with the kids. They're just petting Lingo. But I'm talking to their parents and their families. And when I talk to them about, their pets at home or Lingo story, and you can often see tears swell up in their eyes because it's the first time they've seen their child smile, and you know what I mean, who knows how long. And what it does is it makes me think of my family, my mom sitting there in that room. It makes me think of all the people that I've heard, and it changes the way that I think. And as difficult as those thoughts are for me to have, I can only have them if I help somebody else without the expectation of something in return. So and God continues to, teach me things through Lingo. Lingo was born the same month as my tumor was removed. He just turned 10 in August, and I celebrate 10 years cancer free. So I mean, if that's not God, I don't know what is, right? And so there's so many, he just continues to teach me and to bring me out into the world, meeting all these great people and doing all this great work with speaking. And so it just helps me continuously on a daily basis. It just gets me outside of myself because I have a disease of the self. And I can only, when I'm outside of myself, and that's how I really recover.
Interesting. All right. I mean, that's awesome that you were able
Yeah.
to find this dog, and
Yeah.
kudos to your mom,
Yeah.
for
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
"Hey, this is something that's going to help my son." So, I mean, that's brother, that's amazing. So, I can't help but notice you've got this sort of huge military presence,
Yes.
around you, but you did not serve, right?
I'm the only one that didn't know. Yeah.
Okay.
I played baseball. I wish I did now that I look back on it, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, you were on a different track. I mean, you were headed
Yeah.
towards
Yeah.
professional
For,
baseball, so
for sure.
I'm sure they were all nodding their head, going, "No, you go ahead," right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
exactly. The has how has that impacted things? With every member of the family being this, sort of disciplined, rigid background, and then you're trying to sort of forget everything and be like, I don't want to hear about any rules, and you have rules kind of all around you, with the family.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, my dad was a command sergeant major. My mom was, yes, what, 16 or something. She ended up working at the Pentagon. So they're all big wigs in the military. And yeah, I think my dad had a rough childhood, and I think that he did the opposite, right? He gave me kind of less structure, right? And I think
Uh,
I think part of it was, so many people at an early age telling me how great I was at baseball, and all the accomplishments and the things that I was achieving. It kind of had him like take a step back on my behavior because everything looked good on the outside. So I never had that rigidity that most military families have. I always got away with things because of my success
mm,
on the field. Because by 15 years old, I was getting hundreds of letters from every Division I college in the country. You know what I mean? So, and playing on all these elite travel teams, and so I think that took away of it. And I learned to manipulate that. I learned to manipulate adults and to get away with things, and so I think that yes, it was tough for them. It was tough for him to deal with it, but I didn't have that rigidity even later on because I always learned to get away with it. Mm.
okay. That was sort of floating around my head. I'm like,
Yeah,
how in the world
yeah,
with
right.
all of this military around you? But
Yeah,
I get it. I really do. I get that. And a lot of military dads are that way too. They were raised this way, and they're like, I got to take it easy on my kid
yeah,
because I can't have him go through what I went through. But you brought up a couple of other things here too in the last couple of minutes in terms of the way that you were treated when you were growing up and how it was all about how much you were, what a great baseball player you were going to be and so on. And from what I understand, that sort of becomes your entire identity then. That is
sure.
who you are. Then when you lose that, you're almost like grieving the loss
Yeah,
of this, personality that you have. So, I know that that's part of what sort of starts the tailspin that you end
yeah.
up going into. To come out of it the way you have, have you had to redetermine, and sort of own a new "this is who I am" type of existence?
Yes, 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 and no. I think that's a really good question. I think I have to have a new perspective, right? I have to have a perspective of what I've gained and not what I've lost. Right? When I change that perspective, then I can kind of mold the person that I become. Right? I have to see all the things that baseball gave me. Right? I have to see like the leadership, the resilience, all the strength, and the learning how to deal with failure from baseball. And then I have to see all the things that addiction gave me. I have to see all the things that cancer gave me. But then I also have to accept who I am and who I was and the things that I did, right? I have to accept, hey, I baseball was my first addiction because I love attention and validation from outside sources. I mean that's how I get my self-worth. I have to understand that. And so I'm always going to be that way. Even now when I speak and I write this book and I'm doing all these things out in the open again, I have to check myself always because I like these things and I have to make sure that my motives are right, that I'm doing things for the right reasons. But then I have to once I recognize my character flaws and the things that I have inside me, then I learn how to build my self-worth up from the inside. That's through discipline. So yes, you're right. This is all a journey of self-discovery. I'm still finding out who I am. I'm still finding out all these new things. So now I do everything outside of baseball. Right? I do like I play the piano. I play. I read and I do all write books now. I didn't think I was going to be an author. I speak and I do all these different things because I'm still finding out who I am. And I think it's a never-ending journey, right? And I'm so excited. I had this picture of who I was and who I wanted to be and who I thought you would think was cool. This tough, masculine, womanizing, loud cocky baseball player. And that just wasn't who I was. And I had to see that baseball wasn't my destiny. It wasn't what I was put here to do because I was always trying to be somebody different. Right. See, I was always afraid to be myself at the risk of your approval. Right. And so now when I accept me for me, then I can just be me out in the open. It doesn't matter. I can be honest, and I don't worry about what you think. And when I do that, I learn a little bit more about myself. I learn that my best is good enough. Right. I learn all these things. So for me, it's a daily thing. 'Cause I spent so many years identified as something that I thought I wanted to be. But so yeah, yes and no into your question. But yeah, I think I'm still learning. I'm still
Yeah.
learning how to do all these things, and it's kind of exciting. To be honest.
Wow. Okay. How so?
Like it's just I think like I'll put it this way, like the truth is exciting because you don't know what's going to happen. Like I don't know what's going to happen, right? When I lie to you, I know what's going to happen. You're either going to believe me or you're not, right?
Right.
Right. But the truth or putting myself out there, I don't know what's going to happen, and that used to terrify me. The unknown used to terrify me, but it doesn't anymore because whatever scenario I generate in my head, it's usually always way better than what it is going to be. Because like when I generate those, when I'm caught in isolation, when I'm caught in the prison of my own mind, I create scenarios up in my own head so I don't do them. But now when I risk it I'm okay with doing it, all these good things happen. I meet these great people and these situations arise, just week to week or month to month, just by being out there and by being present. So yeah, that's exciting to me. Where hey, failure's okay with me. I'm okay to fail because I learned something. I learned the most from my failures. So if the worst thing that can happen is I'm going to learn something, then why not do it?
Nice. Nice. I appreciate you, fielding all these questions too, because,
Yeah.
open, just to be totally transparent with everybody, I don't prep anybody for my questions. I mean,
Yeah.
so he's hearing all these for the very first time, and he's like, "Whoa, okay."
Well, it's exciting,
I love it. That's
Yeah.
exactly. It's truth. We have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, right.
That really
Yeah.
hit when you just said that to me. So, I love that, man. I really do. And all right, so at some point though in your journey, you are like, "Hey, I need to share this." Is that when the speaking starts? Is that when you write the book? Tell me about the process of going, "Hey, I'm healing. I'm trying to become this new person and figure out who I am, but I want to share this
Yeah.
story with everybody."
Yeah, so I'm in recovery and about a year of sobriety. I celebrated 5 years of sobriety on the April 1st. But I was a year into sobriety and I was asked to speak at a treatment center in front of a couple hundred people to share my story. And it was my first time really speaking in front of a large group about it. And I was thinking in my head, right? I'm this professional baseball player. Like I used to pitch in front of thousands of people. Like how hard is this going to be, right? So I went up there and I started to speak. And I like to tell the story like after I was done, it was like the movie A Star Was Born. I was a speaker now, but it was not the truth. I sucked. And I'm a perfectionist. I think you have to be a good athlete. You have to be your harshest critic, right? And so I was in real time just like, thinking about how much I was thinking. But after I was done, people came up to me and told me how much they could relate to my story and how much that it helped them and shared a little bit of their story with me. And it was a powerful moment to where I thought, hey, I finally felt the urge that to get better at something, and I can help people in the same process, and most importantly, I can talk about me. I was like, why not pursue this, right? And
Yeah.
so I went back to school and finally to get my degree because when I got drafted, I left a little early and I changed my majors to communications and psychology and then I just practiced speaking. I gave my commencement speech and then it was like, yeah, where do I go from there? And because like I said earlier, I wish my motives were so altruistic, but they're not, because helping other people helps me the most, right? Because when I help people, it really just gets me outside of myself, and it really does just changes the way I think and my mood and everything. And so then yeah, so now hey, I just moved to Ohio. I'm from California. I want to be this motivational speaker. What do I do? And I had no idea what to do, right? Like what,
Right.
right? I want to get paid to speak, but how do I do it? And so I started to look, I think when anybody enters a new industry, what you do, you turn to the people who've had success, right, in that industry. And so that's what I did. And I was looking at all these speaking bureaus and and everybody's like, well, do you have a book? And I'm like, well, hey, every motivational speaker has a book, right? So I'm like, shit, I got to write a book now, right? So
Yeah.
that was my motive again, and I started to do it, and I realized, I'd always thought about it. People had told me, you hear that all the time. You have a great story. You should write a book. Yeah, and
Right.
I thought about it. I'd taken notes and things, and so, but then I sat down to do it, and it just turned into such a healing process. And I never had any experience in writing. I went to Berkeley, which is a challenging school, but I was really good at BSing. I was really good at just doing the papers and everything the night before. So I always had some creativity and writing and manipulation and things. So, but I started writing it and turned into such a healing process. And then for a year, it came together into something where at one point when I was working on it with my editor when it was finishing up, I was just like, who wrote this? And yeah, so I poured my soul into it, and it's just I took a level of honesty that I hadn't really taken before in a lot of ways. And so because I think most importantly for me, because I dealt with so many rare instances, so many rare issues that I had to turn. I didn't have help from doctors. I didn't have help from therapists. I never, walked out of a doctor's office or a therapist's office with hope. But it was a story of other people overcoming really challenging times or insurmountable odds that always gave me hope and what helped me the most. And so I think my goal, my hope is that my story can help other people in the same way.
Okay. All right, I got you. The I love I usually ask a question, about like what's behind writing the book, but you literally just said, shit, I have to write a book. Brother, I love that. That was like one of my favorite moments ever. So, because it was so honest. You're just like, hey, man, I want to speak. I got to write a book. That's beautiful. But so first of all, let me back up because congratulations on your anniversary. You know what I mean?
Oh, thank
Of
you.
being
Yeah,
sober. Brother, it's sobriety is amazing and a daily battle. So, congratulations on
thank
that.
you.
I want to make sure we recognize, you know what I mean? So, very, very cool. Um, the you got the book, you got the speaking. What's the long-term goal of this? I know it makes you kind of feel better. It helps you with, what you're dealing with. What are you really trying to accomplish with this? And I know you want to help people.
Yeah,
Where's this going? You know what I mean? In
yeah,
terms of speaking, books, so on. Because I mean, I feel this ramping up period for this guy sitting in front of me who's you got to have long-term goals in that
yeah.
recovery. So I'm wondering what they are.
No, thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. And I started with the long-term goal before I did any of this, so that's a good thing, right? And usually I just make impulsive decisions my whole life. So this time I did it a little differently. So I inherit the reason why I moved out here to Northeast Ohio in the middle of nowhere in this forest to that helped me so much is I inherited a 110-acre property from my grandfather. And so I live in the middle of a forest, in Pierpont, Ohio, in the middle of nowhere. So but I have like it's beautiful. He built it in 1984. It's all trailed out. I have two huge ponds. I have my dogs and me out here, but it's a lot of work. I got soft California hands. You know what I mean. I don't know how to do any of this this farming out here, this tractor work and all this other stuff, and the cost of diesel and the cost of maintaining all this stuff, and it's an issue, and I wanted to set a life for myself where I'm able to spend time out here and enjoy this place that helped me heal and to do something, but at the same time be able to make enough money to be able to afford all this stuff in here. I got a lot of heavy equipment. So I thought, hey, maybe if I can speak 35 to 40 times a year, travel a little bit, then I can spend the majority of my time out here and I want to eventually build a dog sanctuary or some sort of retreat out here. So this place is been where I learned the difference between isolation and solitude. This place really helped me come out here when I needed it the most, and my grandfather really took care of it. And I want to respect his wishes, and I want to keep it because it's a tree farm. It's just no cutting has been done. Nothing out here. I do maple syrup out here now. I do all kinds of cool stuff. So I think that's my end goal is to be able to do that and to help people in that way, but also to make time and do something for the dogs who have saved my life.
That's fantastic. That really is. The now, when you say dog sanctuary,
Yeah.
is that rescuing dogs? Is that
I
helping,
don't know. I don't know yet. Yeah, it's
Oh,
gonna
okay.
it's gonna manifest itself in some way. I don't know. Maybe a
Fair.
therapy dog thing. Maybe it's
Yeah.
a retreat. Maybe a retreat for people to come out here and to experience nature. I don't know how it's going to manifest itself. I gotta work on the paying for it part. I gotta work on the job part first, which
Right.
I'm focusing the majority of my time on. But it's going to what I've learned in this journey of self discovery is that the more that I show up and the more that I put myself out there, the more good things and opportunities happen. So I don't know what's going to happen next month. Just every month is different, and that's exciting, right? I mean, I do. I'm a military, brat. I do much better under like rules and what I mean and structure. But this is a little chaotic for me. But it's getting there. And so I don't, like I said, I don't know. I have all these connections at university hospitals with therapy dogs and all these people. So who knows who's going to come into my life tomorrow? That's going to change that. And so I'm open to all of it, but I know that I want to continue to share my story and help other people in the things that helped me, and however that may manifest itself, I'm okay with. But it's going to happen.
Nice. Nice. We didn't touch on the book much. Okay, so I
Yeah,
want to make sure that I get a little bit more about the book
yeah,
out there for everybody. The book
sure.
itself is The Disease of Me, How Losing My Professional Baseball Career, Drug Addiction, and Brain Cancer Saved My Life. I mean, clearly it's your story.
Yes.
When people pick this book up, is this a factual retelling of your story? Is it sort of a learn from this? What is the book sort of designed to do?
Yeah, so it's like I said, it's my experience in a lot of ways, and but it's also not just a memoir, or it's not really a self-help book. It's more of just like certain things that helped me, and it's a lot of story about other people, other stories of people that have gone through unique experiences to that really helped me make some changes in my life. And the first introduction part of it says why you shouldn't read this book, right? It's because I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. I'm not, I don't have fancy letters next to my name. I have a bachelor's degree that took me 6 years to finish, and I don't have the answers to your problem. I don't have seven rules. I'm not one of those guys. I don't have all these different things. I can't teach you how making your bed's going to lead to a better life because I suck at making my bed, right? All these things. But what I do have is, like I said, is a story and stories that connect us. And so I started out by explaining what the disease of me is. And the reason why I chose the disease of me is because, I hear, a lot, and I think people need to hear this, is that addiction is a disease, right? And oftentimes and I agree with it. It is that, but I can't look at it that way because oftentimes it's compared to with cancer, right? If somebody had cancer, you wouldn't negate them in the way that you do with addiction. Well, yeah, well, I didn't rob anybody to get my chemotherapy. You know what I mean? So cancer is a little bit different to me than addiction because I've been through both of them, right? Addiction tore my family apart. Cancer brought it together. So I can't look at my disease of addiction. I'm the disease because drugs and alcohol are a symptom. They just make me worse. Because even if I take drugs and alcohol out of my life, I'm still full with all these character defects, right? And so I have to work on me. And so I explain a little bit and that's my opinion. Right? That's just my opinion and how I believe it. And I understand the science and I understand all that. And it's great because when I say, hey, I'm an addict, I couldn't control myself, then I just justify all my shitty behavior. So I can't do that. So I explain a little bit about what that is. I talk about identity and my athletic identity. I get into some research. I did a lot of research for this book too, and there's some stuff in there and about elite level athletes and how they associate their identity and their self worth based on their performance. And I get into that, and then I get into a psychotic break that I went through that changed everything. Moving to Ohio, and then part two is the problem. I chronicle my experiences between baseball addiction and cancer. So that's my story. And then I talk about the solution, which part three, which is taking personal responsibility, managing my pain, and my relationships with God and with other people. Those are how I live in the solution when I manage those things on a daily basis. And then part four is what I gained, not what I lost. What I gained through baseball, what I gained from addiction, what I gained from cancer, and how I adhere to these new philosophies in my life and all the things and people that influenced me. So yes, it is my story. It is a memoir, but it's a story of all of us because cancer, addiction, and sports impact every one of us in some way, indirectly or directly. So it's for people going through the hard times. It's for parents who have athletes. It's for people struggling through addiction. It's people facing those those questions of their mortality when they're fighting cancer. I just get into the minutia of it, my thoughts and what I was going through at that time and how I cope with it or how I didn't cope with it and what I wish I would have done better and those perspectives of both past and present and how I live in the moment now.
Wow. All right. I'm really glad I asked you that question. Holy cow.
Yeah.
All right. Because honestly, when I read the title, I figured, okay, it's the story of you, which you're telling me right now. So that's good. It is a lot more
Yeah.
than that. I mean, it sounds like you go really deep in this book.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
My gosh. Okay. I mean, I'm assuming that was somehow therapeutic or cathartic
Oh,
or
absolutely.
something,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. When you're on stage, are you talking the book or are you, tailoring your speech to, who you're talking to, that type
Yeah.
of thing?
Yeah. It's pretty much the same story, but yeah, I tailor it too. So if I'm speaking to athletes, I'll tailor more into the baseball side of things and how identity caused me into my addictions and other things. And if I'm talking to addicts, I'll get more into my addiction and be more relatable in that sense. And if I'm speaking to cancer or students or whatever it may be, I'm tailoring that too. So if I'm speaking to at schools and things, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the things I wish I would have done differently, how to be like how to influence the environment around you, however, yeah, I'm tailoring it to the audience, but it's always the disease of me is my topic, right?
Right.
Why I why I crashed and burned, and why those things, how those things happened, and I guess a cautionary tale on hopefully what to do to avoid it, because I think if my story can help just one person avoid the things that I went through, I think it'd be worth it.
Nice. And so that's a part of it too, is sort of the preventive action
Yeah,
of don't let this happen to you. Here's how you
yeah,
can avoid it.
yeah.
Right. That's different
Yeah,
from the average
and I
weapon.
don't share that to say, hey, don't do this. I just show you, hey, like I was at the top, and this is how easy it's how fast it can happen, or
Uh,
just overnight. Overnight I went from close to being in the big leagues with the Red Sox to smoking heroin on tinfoil, and it can happen that fast,
yeah.
and it's scary, especially nowadays with drugs like fentanyl. I didn't have to deal with that stuff where you take one, we make one mistake and you're dead,
Yeah.
and it's serious. And I tell these kids and people, it's just like, yes, I'm talking about a lot of serious things, but it is serious. It's about the choices that we make, and it's hard sometimes because youth and introspection aren't really conducive with each other, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's hard. But that's the thing about me. I still look the part. I'm still young enough. I'm a big guy, and they listen to that. So I'm trying to do that as long as I can to get that message across.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We have a lot of listeners, so I figured, hey, let's try and get you a little more business on that speaking
Yeah,
track. Who
well,
knows, right?
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll talk anywhere, anytime, from prisons to fancy banquets. I go everywhere.
There you
So,
go. There you go. The I guess in what's been your favorite venue so far that you spoke at?
ooh, I like. I mean, the prisons were terrifying, but because but a little bit at first, But once they get to know me, and hear my story, that's a little bit easier, But the first time I went to one of those was a little scary. I like them all. I like speaking at big addiction treatment centers because I can get a little bit more funny and share a little bit more openly about some of the craziness, because they all get it a little bit better. But I like all of it, because it's always the same in the end. It's just in a different way. It's always that relatability. It's that connection, that human connection. Because I think when you live in isolation for so long, and when you're the smartest guy in the room, you're the only guy in the room. And now that I see that connection, and I just feel it when I speak in that energy and that moment that we collectively created in that group conscience. It happens everywhere. And so, yeah, it's everyone's a little bit different, but it's all exciting to me in the same way.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I love the way you're spreading your word and just out there helping people because there really is no greater calling than to help people avoid the mistakes that we made. So I think that's wonderful, brother. It really is. Love what you're doing. Love what you're doing. All right. I only have one more question for you at this point. I mean, you've really just completely killed it here today. I love your story and everything you've accomplished. Before I ask that, how can everybody reach you? What's the best way to reach you, to book you, to find the book, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so michaelbugary.com, michaelbugary.com. You can send me an email. There's a little way to connect there, and if you go onto there's a disease in me portion, you can order my book. My book is on Amazon. It's available on Amazon, and there's places to request me to speak, or even just send me a message. That's what it's all about for me, is just that human connection and talking. So that I'm on Facebook. I'm at mbugary on Instagram, and I'm trying to do the whole TikTok thing. I'm not really good at it, but I'm trying to do it, and LinkedIn as well. So I'm on all the social media platforms. I'm trying to figure it out right now. I gotta hire like some Gen Zer to do it because I just want to be the show pony. But I'm trying to do it, and I'm getting there. But
I
yeah,
love it. All right.
yeah. So that's the best way you can contact. My email is mbugary@outlook.com. Any way you can get a hold of me, please do.
All right. Beautiful. I want to make sure that I got that last part right. The that Outlook, the
My first
social media.
initial, first initial, last name at outlook.com. Outlook.com. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. And on social media, on Instagram and on Facebook, you're M. Bugary?
Yeah, Michael Bugary on Facebook and my full name, and then Instagram's M Bugary.
Okay, that's what I wanted to check. I wanted to make sure I
Yep.
was getting that down correct in the show notes for everybody so they can go find you.
Yep.
So, hey, part of growing that social media is people can find you. So
Yeah, right.
that's
Yeah.
important, man. All right, beautiful. I think that's fantastic. All right, listen, as we kind of wrap this up, it's been an absolute incredible time hearing your story. And I mean, kudos to you, brother, for everything you've had to overcome. It's really an amazing story here. Is there anything I didn't ask you? Is there anything that maybe we talked about you want to kind of double down on, reinforce the message, or maybe just some parting words for all the men who are listening to this, some of whom may be dealing with what you're dealing with? I'm going to give you the floor for the last minute here, and go ahead and give us a good wrap.
Yeah, I think the one thing I can say is, and I say it a lot. I think for me it was is I had to find my self-worth from within, right? And there's so many times in my life where I found external motivation, right? It was somebody telling me that I wasn't good enough, or it was a pretty girl, right? Whatever it may be, it was external motivation to drive me. But once I achieve that goal, achieve that motivation, then there's periods of stagnance because it's never enough, and then I had to find something else, and something else has to happen to me. And for me, that wasn't healthy, and so that if I determine my self-worth from the outside, then I'm always in trouble and I'm looking for other things, right? Because that need for more inside me is infinite. And the only thing that can fill it is God, because God is infinite. So I have to find this need inside. How do I build my self-worth from the inside out? And that's why discipline always beats motivation. If I create little small wins every day for myself, whether it be a routine or whatever it may be, that's how I build my self-worth up from within. So that's so important to me, because then I can take risk and do these things without the risk of people's approval. And so that's what I had to learn that lesson the hard way. And the last thing is that if you're struggling and if you're trapped in your own mind and you feel like there's any hope and you don't know what to do, get outside of yourself and just help somebody. And it's the hardest thing to do. The hardest thing to do in those moments is to think about somebody else, but it can be small. It can be helping a neighbor. It can be, just volunteering somewhere or at a dog shelter or whatever it may be. Just and then do that and see how it changes the way that you think. Because when we're outside of ourselves and we see the problems of other people, we realize that our problems aren't so big and we're so much more similar than we realize we are.
Amazing, fantastic close. I mean, I knew you were going to give me something beautiful right there, so I
Well,
appreciate that.
I was a closer in pitching, so
Okay, there you go. All right. Folks, motivational speaker and author of The Disease of Me, How Losing My Professional Baseball Career, Drug Addiction, and Brain Cancer Saved My Life, Michael Bugary. Michael, thank you, brother, for coming on today, sharing the way you have, and just for inspiring everybody who's listening. Really amazing, and proud of you, man. You've accomplished a ton, so way to go.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. Folks, this has been another amazing episode of the Power Man podcast. And the reason we bring these powerful men on here with these powerful messages is because we are united in hoping that you can find your power so that you can become a better protector, a better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today. So you can become a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you matter. It's because you have value. And it's because you're worth it. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.